All right.
All right.
Hello, everyone. We are,
Our family Exodus.
yes.
And today we have the pleasure of introducing you all to Attorney Ian Clement. Ian helped us through our residency process. He's still helping us. We still have to do the kids. But he helped me, Danielle, my mother-in-law,
Mhm.
and the kids. So basically our whole family. And we love Ian to death. He's done some other interviews with us, and he is amazing. He's thorough. And so without further ado, we want to let Ian introduce himself. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for the introduction. It's nice to be here with you. And like you said, we've worked on a lot of stuff, and I've worked with a lot of people here in town. We're in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, in case anybody doesn't know where we're located. And yeah, we're right here downtown. We work with lots of people, Americans, Canadians, people from all over the world, Mexicans too. And the office handles all kinds of legal work, but one of the specialties that we work in and love to work with people on is residency in Mexico. And so I think the focal point of today's talk is how do you become a resident of Mexico? For a lot of people, obviously things happened last week that have kind of catalyzed a lot of people to be interested in how do I get set up, established in Mexico? And I think it's a perfect moment to go over these things. And so since some people have an idea and have studied this, researched this, talked to friends, read about it, and other people, it's completely new to them, we'll sort of just start from square one, from the drawing board, and we'll go over the conventional way to set up your residency, which everybody should know about. And then we'll also cover, Elton had said that he wanted for me to go over the broad strokes of the program called Regularization, which is still alive and a lot of people don't know about, which allows people to become residents of Mexico since COVID with a real streamlined approach. And you don't even have to leave Mexico. So a lot of people are curious about how that works. And let's go ahead and if I'll just take the floor and I'll explain to people how it works, where you start. So what you're going to want to be aware of is that all around the world, there are consulates and there are embassies of Mexico. And so the very first step for the traditional, conventional setup for a residency in Mexico is going to begin at your local consulate of Mexico. So if you live in a big city like Houston or Dallas or New York or Seattle, something like that, San Francisco, you're going to have a Mexican consulate that's located in your city somewhere. So you can find those. I believe my Facebook page has a photo, has an image of where every consulate and the embassies, obviously in Washington, D.C., but where all the consulates are located, spread out across the United States. And then all countries essentially have an embassy of Mexico. So smaller places might not, but most places, every European country that's not, tiny, it'll have a Mexican embassy. So you can always set up your residency, get your residency rolling. Like in London, like in Madrid, all of the world capitals have a Mexican embassy. Now in the United States, there are lots of cities that have a consulate. And so most of our clients will set up, Canada has quite a few consulates too. And so most people will allow for us to set up an appointment and then prepare them so that they go into their local consulate and they get pre-approved. So you'll get pre-approved for residency. What that means is that you will take financial information, marriage certificates, birth certificates. If you're applying with your kids, then you want to take their birth certificates. Both parents want to go. There are a bunch of prerequisites, but the crux of it really is that you need to show finances. Okay, and there's two kinds of residencies. There's two basic kinds of residency. There's temporary residency and there's permanent residency. Now, all temporary residents can become permanent residents upon them being residents for more than 4 years. You can automatically move into permanent residency. But some people are eligible to jump right into permanent residency right from the jump. And usually that's based on being a retiree and having a pension, Social Security or pension. Now, the basic requirements at each consulate are a little bit different. So on each website, it'll tell you what the requirements are. But essentially, what you're going to want to be able to prove is that you have what equates to $4,200 of monthly income for 6 months that's provable, or $73,000 in investments or cash in the bank for 12 months. So typically, unless somebody just has outrageous income or incredible savings or investments, I usually tell people, look, take both your investment account, your stock portfolio or your savings account plus your income. And then you can show both, and it's just you'll get there without the agent bringing up any sort of technicality. It's just better. So it's best to just get it done the first time that you go. You have to take some after the presentation. I'll send this to anybody who's interested in having the list. But you're going to take some photos. You're going to take all your bank account information. It's good to take, if you're married, it's good to take your marriage certificate. If it's a couple going together, if it's people going as a family, then it's good to take birth certificates and marriage certificates. So really, the more information that you take, the better off it's going to go. And you can really just put everything down on the table and allow for the agent to look through. And you want to take a copy of everything along with the original. So again, 12 months of investment or savings, 6 months of income, okay? Now, the best case scenario is that everything's in the exact name of who's applying, but usually they'll give you a break if, for instance, you earn your money through an LLC and it's somehow related to your name. But you want to take, if you're collecting money through paying yourself a salary or something like that when you own a business, you want to take a little bit more and be able to explain to them how that works. Because if your business has a completely different name than anything to do with you, sometimes they're sort of not be exactly sure if what you're doing isn't something contrived. And so you just want to, if it's that sense where you're collecting from a business and paying yourself a salary, you just want to be extra sure that they understand that it's your business. And so you can also take your tax returns. And so really, there's no such thing as taking too much information, but I've seen a lot of people who take too little information and then, write me back, call me back and say, hey, look, they wanted this or that. And so we've come to terms with the fact that it's best to just take everything, take the kitchen sink, and then you can't go wrong. Now, most consulates and embassies, they'll take your passport, right? And then in these back pages back here, they'll laminate in an approval that states that you've been approved, the type of residency that you've been approved for. And then usually they'll give you that the same day that you apply. Some actually will have you come back a few days later. Like in New York City, they usually have people come back and they keep the passport and then they give people their approval a couple of days later, which can be a little awkward. So be prepared. In some of the bigger cities, they don't do it on the spot.
I think that's a good point. I just want to mention passport. A lot of people don't have passports.
Well, that's a different conversation.
Yeah. So make sure you have your passport.
Exactly. So the very first step in all of this, before you even start thinking about moving abroad at all or even visiting, is you're going to have to get a passport. And you can do that. It's real simple. You can do that. You can do that at the post office. You can really, there are a million places in the U.S. that will allow for you to fill out the forms and do a passport photo and send that in. So if you live in the United States, I can't speak for every country, but in the United States, it's a very simple process. You can get a passport in a couple of weeks, even if it's your first passport. And so that's a good point. You got to have one of these because they can't grant you this unless you have a passport with at least one open page for them to laminate it in here. Okay. So just be aware of that. Hold on. It looks like
somebody Angel asked a question.
Is that a hard?
So she said, "Is the 42?"
Yeah. So Angel, let me answer that question. So A lot of this interview is going to be arbitrarily based on the decision of the agent, right? So I've seen hundreds of people go, and I've seen people who have been nitpicked for some specific little technicality and sent home to fix it. And then I've also seen people who didn't fit the exact criteria and they've been able to pass. And so it's really based a lot upon the agent. Now, the agent can't just approve somebody who has no income or something like that. But for instance, if you make 4,100 rather than the 4,200, that's why, especially that person, so that applicant, that profile is really going to want to take their investment account too. They're also want to take any now, here's an example. People are allowed to take anything that they want. Now, it's based on, like, some people will say, well, can I take my cryptocurrency account? They don't want to look at that. It doesn't hurt to take real estate, so deeds that you have, mortgages that you have. It's not a bad thing. Sometimes they don't want to see it, and sometimes they do. But I think that all wealth that you have, anything that adds to the bottom line of your net worth, I think is good to take. And certainly, that's a really good question, though. But so if you're just below the mark that the consulate setting, and you say that you have 4,100 of base income each month, then most people who make that kind of money, they'll have some savings or they'll have some investments. And so just take it all and present it in a real positive way. And usually, if you have a reasonable minded agent, usually you'll be able to pass. Okay, but that's a real good question, because sometimes people will just be a tiny bit underneath the baseline criteria, and I've seen a lot of people like that pass. But usually when they just take, like, if you just take 6 months of 4,100, usually they'll go, you know what, come back after you've made some more cash, or once you're making a little bit more. And so a lot of people too in today's economy, they make money. We make money from different sources, right? And so you might be doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so people who have, like, a one job and all the benefits and everything, that's sort of, I mean, some people do, but a lot of that's a thing of the past. And so you also don't want to just try to think, okay, well, let me just take my main job income or whatever my main income, take it all, so that you just, even if you make like really, really good money, take it all. It doesn't hurt. You're only going to have to go once. And so it would be more of a drag to have to go twice than to just print out a whole bunch of paper, highlight your name, the date, the source of the income, whatever it is, than to have to go back to the drawing board and do it all over. So try to get it, rule of thumb, try to get everything done first time. And we found that when you print, another thing, a lot of bank accounts, a lot of investment accounts, bank accounts will be like page 1 through 9 for each month, or 1 through 15. But all of the crucial information will be contained in 3 pages. Unfortunately, they don't want people to take page 1 of 3, 1 of 9, 2 of 9, 3 of 9, and then be missing 4 through 9. They'll often look down upon that. And so even though it seems like a whole bunch of paper to print, just print them all out. They'll shred them there, but a lot of it'll just be like account information or in fine print. But you do want to take it all. If it's 1 through 9, just take all 1 through 9, because I've seen people run into jams where all I took was the substantive information pages, and they go, no, we don't know what was on 4 through 9, and it might have been nothing. But just make sure you take it, because they often say this is no good. So only take that.
Yeah, and we've heard that too. Like, I think too, Angel, what we're also going to talk about a little later after we talk about the different residencies is the regularization program, where you wouldn't necessarily have to present financials. So that's what we're going to talk about after we talk about the standard residency process.
I do have a question for you, Ian, just to help people clarify. So, like, we're a couple. Is the 4,100 for each person as a couple, or for the total income in our for us?
No, so a married couple gets you want to take as much as you can, but a married couple, since maybe one is the breadwinner or both are, you're not going to have to show double. So you're not going to show, for instance, here 8,400 as a combined income. You can take. There's not an exact rule on what you're going to need to show there. But as the sponsored spouse, well, you're not going to need to show that you're a sponsored spouse. They'll usually do the family unit, and then with kids too. People say, "Oh my gosh, well, we have 3 kids. How are we going to ever be able to fit that? 4,200 times 5?" And they're not going to hold you to that. So, if one of the partners in the marriage, one of the parents has a solid income, or both combined for a solid income, that criteria isn't absolute. And so you're going to go in and explain to them how your finances work, and you should get there. So don't think that a family of 5 would need to show
like $20,000.
Yeah, $21,000. That's never going to be the case. So every case, and the truth of it, for better or worse, every case is viewed to a certain degree subjectively. So you want to definitely go in with the best attitude, positive about Mexico. If you speak some Spanish, use your Spanish, build a little relationship, built a little 20-minute relationship with the agent, show them that you're excited about Mexico. And obviously, every bureaucrat acts differently and has a different vibe. So just, bring your best, and definitely, print everything out. I think that they really like it when you highlight your name, highlight the date, make it as
easy.
Exactly. Make it as easy to get through the information, and don't bring it in any way sloppy. So let me just organize this real quick while you wait. It's like, no, you need to have month by month. You need to have as much so that they can get through with you as quickly as possible, review as quickly as possible, and make a choice. And so people, just don't go in disorganized. I hate that. So definitely a rule of thumb. I've seen people go in who have many more times the income necessary, who just take it too casually. Go home, organize this, come back, and so that's
good advice.
a big part of it is your presentation. And so again, you don't have to go in black tie dress, but you don't want to go in a tank top and flip flops either. So you just want to present yourself as
the government building,
show up respectfully,
and
just neat and appropriately dressed, and everything should go fine. People almost always have a good experience. Now, Mexico can't grant people who, if you only make $900 a month, that most likely they're not going to give you the visa. And in years past, it was a much lower baseline. So this baseline's been raised a lot. And I really hope that, well, I don't want to speculate, but I just really hope that any U.S. antagonism about immigration isn't going to make this more difficult. So I think that for people who are thinking about doing this, now really is the time before, policy gets tightened or anything gets more restrictive. I think it's really a good moment to move forward with plans, rather than definitely don't procrastinate or let things get more difficult, really. Here, in January, they may raise the amounts. We don't know precisely what would be raised. They won't lower it probably. And so if you can get on board, this month or next, and you've got your stuff locked and loaded to have your interview, or to get us or anyone else to schedule you, go ahead and do it, because in January you might not fit the bill, and then you will have missed the boat. So don't let that happen either.
Really, really good advice. I had a question when you were talking about the different consulates, because from what I've heard, each consulate, like you said, it depends on your agent, but also each consulate might have different requirements as well, right? So we know that there's a standard eligibility requirement that is publicized, but that we've heard that there are some places that are a little bit more lax than others. Have you heard of particular places that have been on the more lax side versus
Mhm.
others?
Yeah, so Houston, Brownsville, New Orleans, those are three that come to mind that have a lower bar.
Okay.
So those are good ones if people are hunting for the place that will do the lowest. Now, here's an example. There is nothing that's written that says that you have to go to the consulate that's closest to you, but there are certain consulates that won't allow you. Like for instance, LA. If you don't have a zip code, if your address isn't in the zip code of LA County, the LA consulate won't allow you to apply there. They'll say that you need to go to your local hometown consulate. And so in Southern California, we set up for a lot of people in Santa Ana, or we set up in San Bernardino. And
Okay.
so each one, I mean, as you do this more, you find the peculiarities. Or here's an example, and look, this isn't to throw anybody in San Francisco's consulate under the bus. I'm sure they do good work, but people just almost never can get an appointment at the San Francisco consulate. That's one place where we had a gentleman come in last month, and he was able to make an appointment at the San Francisco, and he said he did it through WhatsApp, and he had to send a lot of messages to get them to reciprocate, and he was able to do it. But there are certain places like Laredo, Texas. It's real simple. Their website, their calendar opens up very, very regularly, and we can predict exactly when they're going to open for us. And so that's one that's real easy for us to do. And since that's the closest one to here in town to us, we send a lot of people, or a lot of people will go up and set themselves up there. But some of them are hard, like Seattle's hard. They want you to like email everything in, scan everything, email everything in. And then you have an online interview. So everywhere's a little bit different. And so it's good to consult with somebody who's done these processes at each place, just so they said, hey, heads up, this is how this goes here. This is how this goes there. So really, that's pretty much that's like the main broad strokes about the setting up at the consulates or embassy. We have people that go to the embassy in Washington, D.C. The process is the same as at the consulates. It's just that that's the headquarters for the Mexican government in the U.S., in D.C. And so we have people from Northern Virginia, and from the Beltway area go to Washington, D.C. And then there's one in Philadelphia and New York and Boston and all up. The only one in New England is Boston. And then in the Midwest, there aren't that many. There's Denver. But then north of Denver, there's not much. So out there, like in the Rockies, the only thing is Denver, and then Salt Lake City. And so people who live like in Wyoming and places like that, they have to figure it out. So Chicago or Denver, but there are places, there are parts of the country where there just really isn't enough consulates. And then like Atlanta serves like Tennessee and Kentucky and Georgia and all that area. So some places you have to go quite a bit of distance, and then other places like California has a bunch of them. So it really just depends a lot on where you live. And so yeah, that's it on that, I would say. So before I move to the explanation on regularization, if anybody wants to ask a question about the conventional setup, go ahead, and then I'll switch gears into this other program.
I just had a quick question about those that are considering it with children. So I know a part of the documentation that you have to present is the birth certificate, but isn't it a special type of birth certificate that they have to obtain, or is it just the standard?
So that's a good question. When you present documents here in Mexico that are US documents or from any other country, you're going to almost always have to present them with something called an apostille, which I'm trying to see if I have one here in front of me. But what it is so if you have a document, right, that's issued in San Antonio, Texas by Bexar County, in order to use it in Mexico, you have to get it apostilled, which is another certificate that goes on top of it. And that's issued by Austin, like Secretary of State of Texas, or Sacramento if it's California. And so the capital city, wherever you're from, is going to put this it's a page. It's just a page that allows for it to be used in other legal jurisdictions in other countries. Now, at the consulate in the United States, so if you go to the Embassy of Mexico in San Antonio, we'll use that as an example, and your kid was born in Bexar County in San Antonio, the consulate there is not going to ask for an apostille because you're in the United States. And so since you're using the document at an office that's in the United States, in spite of the fact that it's an office that represents a foreign country, they're going to allow you to just use the bare official, the certified copy or the original of the document. But as soon as you go anywhere abroad, and so I'm glad that you asked that, because it's a good point to hit on, and that's that if you're planning to come down to Mexico and you're planning to bring your kids, it's really a good idea to get their birth certificates with this apostille and do that before you get to Mexico, because then you can put them in school, you can get grades, you can get everything, and it can really jam you up if you don't have that. You can, that even happens to kids all the time I see here. Oh, I can't move to the next grade because they can't give me my grades because of this. And so if you can get that done, so if you're a couple, get the marriage certificate apostille, get your birth certificate apostille, and for the kids, it's also a good rule of thumb to just have that done and squared away, and then you can apply for anything here without having to, send off to the home state and do this whole thing from abroad. So very good point. Glad you brought that up.
Okay. So you want to talk about regularization?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Let's get into regularization.
All right. So there's a program that was launched a little bit more than 4 years ago. And it was based on COVID. So it was based on people not traveling outside of the country. It was to sort of keep people from traveling outside of the country if their tourist card expires. So if their tourist visa is expired, and say, oh my gosh, I don't want to be in Mexico with an expired tourist card. And so what it allowed people to do was to, and it still allows people to do, is to set up residency here in Mexico without leaving the country. And so it's never existed before the pandemic, and people can still utilize this system, which there's two things that you need to have at this point, and it's changed each year, bumping the year up. So for instance, this year, 2024, you have to have been in Mexico at any point in 2022 or before. So if you were here in 2017, 16, any of those years, but 2022 or before is one of the criteria. And the second is that you have an expired tourist visa. So no matter how many days you were allowed into the country, whether it's 180 or 3, you have to have passed that date. And then it's not offered in all of the immigration offices in Mexico. It's offered here in San Miguel, and it has been, in fact, next spring, 2025, we're going to do all of the move to permanent residence for people that we did in 2021. So we really got a wave of these. I
was like, yay!
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's going to be fun to move all these people into permanent residency. The program it gives you 4 years of temporary residency. So right out the gate, you get 4 years of temporary residency. And then once you've gone through the 4 years of residency of temporary residency, then you can move right into permanent residency. And so with the regularization program, all of the financial requirements are waived. So you don't have to show any financial requirements. You just have to show up with those two things: visits in 2022 or before, and an expired tourist status. So it's never been easier. And back in the old days, you could get residency a bit more easily than now, but you don't have to go through the consulate. You don't have to do all of that work. So it's been really a blessing for people who don't want to leave the country, or who just don't have or don't want to show that sort of finances.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is actually what Elton and I and my mother have done, to those who are watching. So, for those of you who've never traveled to Mexico or maybe have not traveled abroad yet, the process when you come into a new country with your passport, is they give you a tourist visa. And that is just basically like a stamp in your passport,
Hmm.
and they give you a certain amount of days, right? So the maximum amount of days that you'll get in Mexico is 180 days or 6 months. That's the maximum that you can get, depending on,
It,
the
it
agent and your
depends on the
reason for
agent, and
coming
you're
in.
talking to the
You
agent.
might
Yeah.
not get 180 days. They might give you less. But once that time expires, you are supposed to
To
return
the U.S.
back to, or just leave the country. You don't have to go back to the United States, but you have to leave the country, and then you could come back and get another tourist stamp for another allotted amount of time. So regularization, if you wanted to go through that process, what you would do is you would allow your tourist visa to expire, so you would just overstay, essentially. Um, they're not gonna come and knock on your door and like say you've been here 2 days
Deport
too
you.
long, you gotta go. They're not doing that. But once you have overstayed your tourist visa, you now can qualify for getting your temporary residency through this program
Mhm.
that Ian is telling you about.
Yeah. And I will tell you guys a fond memory for me going through the process that when my visa was expired and I was talking with the agent, um, and we'll talk about the price, but I was asking him, am I legal? And he was saying we don't use that word here. You're not illegal. It's just a fine. It's like getting a ticket. He was like, and that's it. And so you just have to pay that fine, but you're not illegal. We're not going to deport you back to the U.S. It's not that process. So that was a very fond memory that I'll always remember with the agent that I worked with. That he very much clarifies, like, it's not the same. You're not an illegal person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, you're treated with much more dignity
yeah, much more
here
respect.
when
Mhm.
your visa expires than in the States. But you did bring up something else and that we didn't talk about before, which is the cost. Um,
I was gonna let
so,
Ian explain.
but yeah, so yeah,
So Ian,
that's the
that's
question
Ian
that I was gonna
services.
ask,
Mhm.
is the cost for, I guess the cost of both processes. So the cost of going through the standard process in the United States, where you have to go to the consulate and then come to Mexico to finish your residency, versus the regularization program. What are the differences in the cost that for the to the government?
Okay, yeah. So to the government, I don't have my list of prices here, so I don't know exactly to the peso how much they charge, but it's like 6,500 pesos for the temporary residency is what you pay Mexico. So that's like 300, a little bit more than $300.
Mhm,
Mhm.
And then for us to set it up here, we charge 250, so
mhm,
$250. So
Mhm.
process isn't real expensive. It's not a big expense. Um, and then the regularization program costs a bit more. You get the 4 years right out the gate, but part of what Elton was saying about that fine, you pay a big fine. So you end up paying Mexico 25,000 pesos, which is like 1,200 and yeah,
yeah,
$1,250.
mhm,
Mhm.
Pay our office the same amount. You pay 250 or 5,000 pesos. So at 20 to 1 pesos to dollar, the math is easy to do. But yeah, so it's like 1750 for the regularization for 4 years, or like 570 for the 1 year. So with temporary residency, when you get set up at the consulate, you get 1 year out the gate, and then after that 1 year, you can renew for 1, 2, or 3 years. Most people go for the 3 years because it's a better deal. Um, so that's another thing that's convenient about regularization is you don't have to go back after a year and do the renew. And with any type of residency, permanent, temporary, whichever one you have, you're not held to being here for a specific amount of time. So people also say, "Oh, I don't know how much time I'm going to be in Mexico or away," and so you're not held to spending a specific amount of time here. I've never seen anybody lose their residency by the government stripping them of it because they spent too little time here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is good for those of you who are looking to just have your options. So there are a lot of people who may not want to necessarily make the whole move to Mexico, but they want the option if they were to leave to have a place where they wouldn't be held to a tourist visa. So that's a good option.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. All good points. So let's see, that pretty much covers the bases, the basics. So if you guys want to ask some more questions, or if folks in the crowd want to ask some more questions, let's go ahead and do that if that sounds good.
Yeah, that
And
sounds
yeah,
good.
take a couple questions and anything that's on people's minds. And then obviously, I will give my email address and contact information so that if people, talk it over, or tomorrow have questions, we can continue with the conversation. So you don't have to get them out right this sec. But let's see. Angel says, I traveled to Mexico and stayed about 3 weeks in 2002. I don't have my passport from that time. How do I prove my visit? Okay, so that's a good question. So the oldest proof of visit that we've done for regularization, and it was one of the first people that we did it for way back when, was somebody who had visited in 2008. So around 2008, 2007, around that period is when they really got into computerizing everything and having a real good database of who was coming and going. And so I don't know if a 2002, we could always look it up, but I don't know if a 2002 would be in the system. So it would be something that we would check on. That's a good question, though. And we don't have to have the passport from the time period which one traveled, because since passports are only good for 10 years, a lot of people say, well, I was here in such and such a time, 2014, 2013, whenever it was. And so we can look that up in the system to see if you are eligible. And then if you are, then we can move forward. And so another good question, Angel. How do I prove my visit? You prove your visit, you pay a small fee for them to look up. You pay like $60, and the government will look it up for you, so that if it's not in the system, you're not going to pay the whole price and then have them say, we didn't find you. And so the most that you'll pay is like $60 for them to look it up, see if you're in the system with that trip. And so we haven't looked up a 2002 or that far back, but it's possible. I can't say one way or the other. And we're happy to look it up for you and see what's doable. So yeah.
Yeah. And if not, Angel, you might just want to just put a trip to Mexico on the books so you can just have it. And that way, when the next years kind of roll around, because they move back the time every year. So this year is 2022 or before, next year will be 2023.
Exactly.
And then the year after will be 2024. So it's just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. So each year they bumped it up a year. So the required year of eligibility, when they roll this back out in January, if they decide to continue it, which I don't know one way or the other, but I think that they will. But obviously, don't hold me to that. But if they roll it back out, then the requirement year should be 23 in the calendar year of application 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk about the rights that residents versus citizens have?
Sure. So a resident versus a citizen. A resident and a citizen both can work in Mexico, both can make money, both can pay taxes. You can own real estate as either, but on the borders and on the coast, you can't own outright property if you're a resident. You have to own it through a bank trust. So if you're a citizen of Mexico, you can own a property in anywhere in Mexico that's allowed to, where you're allowed to own property. As a resident, there are some restrictions. So the restricted zone on the borders and on the coastline. So becoming a citizen is a little bit more advantageous for people that live down on the beaches. Now, I know a lot of people that own property through the bank trust. It just costs a little bit more to set up, and then you have to pay a fee each year, but it's not tremendous. Citizen versus resident. Residents can't vote. Citizens can vote. If it comes to selling a property and paying capital gains, it's the same for both. Let's see. Citizens, there are some social services that only citizens can have that residents can't have, but you can get a line of credit. You can get credit. You can take out a cell phone. You can get a mortgage as a resident rather than a citizen or a citizen. And so the differences aren't tremendous in most day-to-day things between even temporary, permanent, and citizen. But when you really analyze things more deeply, there are aspects that definitely are advantageous to have the citizenship over the residency. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really good to know that you can't own own property on the coastline, because I think people think about that like, oh, I'm gonna move to Mexico and live on the beach in Tulum or Puerto Vallarta. But yeah, that's really good to know.
And do you have to give up your citizenship from one place to
No.
have it another place?
No, you don't. I mean, some countries won't allow you to have dual citizenship. So there are some countries like Japan where if you're Japanese, you can't have dual. But like my son, I just did my citizenship, so I just became a citizen of Mexico. My son's a dual citizen. So a lot of people, most kids, all American kids, for instance, that are born here in Mexico, they have the right to their Mexican passport, and so everybody whose kids were born here have dual citizenship. If you have a kid who's born in Mexico, you can immediately go into permanent residency. If you're married, if you're married to a Mexican citizen, then you can immediately go into temporary residency. So your family ties, marriage, or being the parent of a Mexican child, is a quick track to residency. There you go. Yeah, there you go. And so, for instance, your residencies, you guys as temporary residencies, when the 4 years roll through of your regularization residencies, which we got, I guess it was last year. So 2023. In 2028, we'll immediately be able to roll you into permanent residency as long as we do the process here. So it's a foregone thing that you'll be able to do that. But if you had another child and he or she were born here in Mexico, you could fast track right into permanent residency.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. And then, so from permanent residency to citizenship, how does that process work?
So if you apply, I'll use my example. So I'm married to a Mexican citizen, but so I did the paperwork through our marriage certificate. But if you aren't married to a Mexican citizen and you want to become a citizen, if you have been a resident for 5 years or more, so that could be time as a temporary or a permanent resident. If you're more than 5 years as a resident and you want to apply for citizenship, you can. In the last 2 years that you've lived, that you've been a resident, you have to have lived in Mexico for 18 out of the 24 months. So 18 out of the last 24 months. If you're under 60 years old, you have to take a really difficult Mexican history and knowledge test. You have to take a pretty simple Spanish test, which most people that speak rudimentary Spanish can pass. And then you have to provide all your documents. You can't have felonies in Mexico. The criteria is there's like 14 items that you have to provide. And so we do that service too. Right now, we're so slammed with the residencies that usually for the citizenship, we do that like in the slower time, like March, April, May, when things are slower here. But right now, it's been a crazy fall. And so we can start to prepare people's applications for that. But right now, we've kind of cooled the jets on those applications because it's such a change of, it's a change of gears. and you have to go to Mexico City to do that. So it's
Okay.
nothing that's difficult. It's just a different recipe. It's a different process. And so we like to do that in a different part of the year. And right now we're focused like on residencies, and also my office does a lot of wills and testamentary work, so estate work. But yeah, we do more and more people want to become citizens, people that own property here, people that just want to protect their interests. And so we get more and more of that. But it's been a little bit hard to juggle those applications with the residencies because it's like a real switch of gears. But we're working on that. We're doing more and more of those, and you wouldn't believe how many people just are just like a little bit worried about political stuff and say, you know what, let's just get the citizenship, let's just get it done, so that even though permanent residency is a strong position to be in, and temporary too, but people more and more just want to bolt it down, make sure that they have all the rights of any citizen, and I get it. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. So I think we should do just like an overall just recap. Okay. So so what we talked about, and you guys will see on the replay, but for temporary and permanent residency, the standard process is to first start at the United States Mexican Consulate in whatever city you're close to. You bring your financials, you bring all of your federal documents, your birth certificate, marriage certificate, whatever you have. There is a certain amount that you have to qualify for, that to show income, that just to show that you aren't going to be a burden on the the Mexican like government, like that you can self-sustain. And if you get approved for that, then you have to go to Mexico and have to go to an immigration office in Mexico.
Ian Clement.
Yes. And Ian and his team will help you with your initial appointment at the consulate, and your appointment in Mexico as well, and help you through that whole process to make that smooth sailing. The difference between the normal process and the regularization process that me and Elton went through is that we did not have to leave Mexico to go back to the United States.
We actually had to let our visas expire.
You have to let your tourist visa expire, not your passport, but your visa. So when they stamp your passport, they give you a certain amount of days. You stay past those amount of days, and then you are eligible for the regularization program, which has a much higher fee, but you get your 4-year temporary residency. You do not have to show financials. You have to fill out minimal paperwork. Ian's team handles that for you. And you schedule an appointment. You show up at immigration. They hand off the paperwork to immigration for you.
And Ian and his team is with you the entire way.
Yeah.
So I want to put that out there for him.
It's very much a smooth process. And then they ask you a few questions about what you do, things like that. And you get your residency card right there on the spot on the same day.
And with the agent, just like Ian talked about, with the agent here in Mexico, I would say present yourself nice, be open about being in Mexico, be interested, be friendly, because the process, you determine the process from there. Once you get in office, Ian, that's the only thing Ian is not going to be there sitting with you with, is when you're sitting there with that agent. So you determine your process after that.
Your body language,
and how you're talking. Learn some Spanish words so you can kind of translate, Google Translate on your phone, whatever you need to do to get your residency from that point forward.
Yeah, bring your best. And everybody down there at this office, and I would say probably at most offices, everybody's real friendly. And once you've been approved in the United States, you have to come and do that process within 6 months. So you have to come and do that and finish it out within 6 months. But once you've been approved in the States, or anywhere that you've been approved, you're already approved. You just have to come and finish it out here. So you pay dues here, but you don't have to re-show any of the finances. You don't have to reprove anything. So once it's done, sometimes people say, oh, do I have to bring everything again? And is it going to be stressful? And the answer to that is absolutely not. The only part that sometimes people feel a little bit under the gun and stressed about is the consular visit. And usually those agents are real nice and polite and gracious. And so I seldom hear people come and have a difficult experience or a terrible anecdote. Let's see, Ms. Wilson, can you please remind me what the fee for the regularization someone requests less than 180 days? Good question. So yes, the fee that you pay the government for, at least here in San Miguel, is 25,000 pesos for the regularization process. And yes, we have people come through the office. We have people come through through the airport all the time and ask for a short visa. So, hey, can you give me 10 days? Can you give me 15, 30 days so that they don't have to wait it out for the whole 180? And most often the agents will oblige to give you the short stay. So usually we have good luck with that. And the agents will give you a short stay so that you don't have to camp out for all that period of time before you get approved for the regularization. So good question.
Yeah. Miss Jackie, I will tell you, we were shocked when we got the 180 days for us. We thought we were going to get less because everybody was saying you're not going to get 6 months. And we said 80 days, and he asked us why, and we told him why.
Yeah.
And he gave us all 180 days easily.
Yeah. So I think she more so wants a shorter. She wants a shorter visa so that she can go through the regularization program. But but our particular airport, they're gonna ask you and kind of prod you for information if you want to stay long. But you shouldn't have a problem getting a lesser time. I think it's more so harder to get more time. Than less.
It used to be something where they would just automatically give you 180. And that's another good reason to set up residence. If you're going to be spending time in Mexico, it's a good reason to get the residency, because you can buy a ticket to be here for 2 months, and you can get here and the agent passes you through the line and gives you 20 days. And then your ticket's all jammed up because you're going to be here. Everything's going to be jammed up because you're going to be here. You're not going to have the period left to be here on the legal visa. And so it's just more and more reasons why it makes sense to address this, just be proactive about this and not allow for it to pass you by. And listen, guys, I got to get going. I don't mean to be, but I got to get home and have dinner. So we can
don't want to hold up dinner.
we can come back to this and have another session if people want to ask more questions, if there's interest, or in the next period this month, we can do a couple more of these and go over whatever people are interested in learning about. I'm happy to do these and chat with you guys. It's been real pleasant, and I always like hanging out with you guys anyway. So let's do this more often, and
just do a plug for yourself.
Tell everybody where they can find you.
They can find you. Website.
Okay, good. Yeah. So the website's real easy. It's ianclement.com, INCLEMENT.com, and we are located in San Miguel de Allende, right downtown. Phone numbers, Mexico, 415-153-2223. And we use WhatsApp, so you can WhatsApp us. That's what a lot of people use here in Mexico for correspondence, for communication. 415, country code 415-153-2223. And then the email is ian@ianclement.com. So thank you. You guys put the website up there, ianclement.com. So it's ian@ianclement.com. And we'll get back to you real quick, answer your questions, set up consultations, and get you moving along with your processes and needs. Okay. So all legal needs here, including the residencies, including immigration stuff, families, single people, couples, we do them all. So just let us know, and we'd love to work with all of you. Okay.
All
All right.
right.
And we want to thank you guys for
Thank you
joining
so
our Family
much.
Exodus. Ian, thank you so much again. You
Yes.
guys, too, if you want to book any consultations with us, just reach out to us at our Family Exodus.
Yeah, we'll be putting a post up. We are
Yeah.
gonna have consultation times on Calendly, so we'll put that link up for you all actually right now.
All right,
All
Ian.
right.
Well, you have a good night and tell everybody we said hello.
Okay,
And
same
enjoy
here.
your night.
All right, we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
All right, thank
Bye-bye.
you. All right. Yeah, we're still live because I got to put this Calendly up. But this will be our launch of our consultation. So if you don't know anything about us, we moved to Mexico almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years in January. Our two kids, both school age,
my mother-in-law.
and my mother, we all moved here to San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. Just off of, just feeling a strong urgency to leave the United States.
Yeah.
There was just a lot going on, and we just felt like it was the right time to start looking to leave. So that's exactly what we did. We started researching different places all around the world where we would want to live, and we decided on San Miguel de Allende. It is a city in central Mexico, and beautiful city, beautiful town.
We are not by the beach.
We are not by the beach
by any means.
But we have beautiful weather, beautiful culture, beautiful people here, just beautiful, art and music scene. It's just, it's a great place to be.
I feel you, Angel.
Yeah. So Angel, and for everyone else watching, the things that we've learned since we've been here have been just integral. Like the regularization program, we did not know about. We would watch videos about residency, and everyone always talked about, oh, you have to go through the consulate. Oh, you have to, show 12 months of financials and all of those things.
And so what really hung us up as a family was the birth certificates. Our daughter is born in Los Angeles. Our son was born in Houston, Texas, and we were like, "Oh my goodness, how are we gonna get these?"
Honestly,
this birth certificates.
I don't even think it was that, because we have the kids' birth certificates. But the thing for us was really just how daunting the whole thing seemed.
Yeah.
Like, you have to start here, then you got to go to Mexico, and then you got to it was just a lot of back and forth. So the regularization program was just best for us because we really didn't have any intent on going back to the States or anything like that. We were like, let's just do it and get it done. Ian's team was amazing, so everything was just so quick. We filled out just your standard information, your date of birth, just your stuff you already know, if that's inherent to you was on the paperwork. What do you do for a living? Things like that. Just your title, not exactly where you work, but things like that. We went to the immigration. They had our seat at the very front of the immigration office. We were the first people in there. It took about an hour to get through the process, and we left with our cards. And we just feel so much more at ease and at peace just knowing that we have it as a backup. We have it as an option, and we just wanted to make you all aware of the options that you have.
Can't stress enough how wonderful Ian's team was. It's we have built a friendship with Ian because of this process. That he's been great for our family. My mother-in-law has done other services with him. We're doing some other stuff with us, building our will and trust for us, as a couple. So Ian has been integral in a lot of that. And information-wise,
Yeah. I think that it's so important to just expedite the process of either your passport and residency, as many as you can get. That that you can
residency.
Get fast.
I want another residency in South America and in Africa, wherever we can get residencies. That way, be good.
It's just great to have the option to leave if you need to leave. And we wanted you all to have that information. So I'm going to put in our Calendly. What we primarily do is we'll be working with you on just kind of creating a plan. mapping out a plan, finding out if Mexico is, you know, what you're looking for, if this is where you're trying to go, we can help you with a move to Mexico. We can't speak on no place else really. We can maybe direct you to some more resources, but if you just want general overall information about just moving abroad, we moved abroad with kids, and we know that that's a whole different layer of
the logistics is a little bit
logistics. So, you know, we have a consultation. It's 45-minute consultation. You can book with us on Calendly, and we'll walk you through like a tailored, specific, customized like plan. We do own a home here. Our family owns a home here in San Miguel de Allende. That was a whole other process. Our kids are enrolled in school. We're not homeschooling. Our kids are enrolled in school. That's another process. So yeah, just if you have questions, I'm about to put this in this link in the chat right now. And
so if you have any questions, feel free, once Danielle puts the information in the chat, to reach out to us for anything. And don't, any little thing, I will tell you, for us, this isn't about a money grab. We just want to help people as much as we can. Yeah, we working. So
that's another thing. We work remotely.
Yeah, we work remotely. A lot of times, you know, it's some money. I'm gonna say it's a money grab. That's not our thing. That's really not our thing. We've been extremely blessed. So we want to just help people and talk to them about our experience. We can't speak about anybody else's experience, but our experience has been great so far. We've had some hiccups, there's been some ups and downs, but everything has been a learning process. Nothing has made us say, we finna get out of here, we finna leave Mexico. Nothing at all. It's just kind of just every day we're like, man, we love it, and we just think it's a blessing being here. So yeah. So if nothing else, you guys subscribe to our channel, Our Family Exodus, on YouTube. We're also on Instagram, and we have a TikTok. We do not have a Facebook. But you guys go and subscribe to all those things and check us out. We're gonna start posting more content. We're terrible. Look, since we do work 9 to 5,
and
we're terrible at we're terrible at posting content. But we're gonna start. We're trying to get better. All right.
Yeah.
So we love y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah.
We appreciate each and every one of you guys, and you guys have a great night.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
I don't know. How do I end it? Ciao.
Industry.
There we go.
There you go.